Okay, this is part 2 of the week 4 homework assignment for Art 239 Web Design 1. So we have our HTML file built, and now we're going to start structuring out our CSS based on what we want to view here. So first things first, we'll flip back to Dreamweaver, and very first thing we need to do is start setting up our body classes. So let's click over to the CSS Designer. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be blocking in elements using the CSS Designer, but you'll start to see me drop off of that and start working through text within the CSS. You can do both. Using the CSS Designer to help you remember what the certain properties are to put into the declarations is super helpful, and especially now since you're at the beginning, you don't know what some of those properties are, so you can use the CSS Designer to help you with that. So we have our main.css source is what we're using. We have nothing in here. It's totally blank, but we have our tags and we have our classes that we've set up already. So first things first, let's set a body tag. So we'll choose the selector here. I'm going to start typing BO to start typing body, and it's going to be right there. I'm going to select that. That's going to fill it in. I got to hit enter to commit it. You'll see that body shows up here in the CSS. That's good. What I want to do from the base is I just want my body to have a background of white. So I'm going to click on the background block here, and I'm going to go background color, and I'm going to slide it up to white, and that's it. Done. So I'm using hex values right now, which is base. You're going to use RGBA if you want to have transparency set. So body background color of white. You won't actually see any change happening here because Google Chrome defaults this to white, so that's okay. Let's flip back. We've got our top section now. Again, click on selector here. Let's start typing dot T-O-P. Now it's not going to show up because it's not a tag, but it is within your HTML, so you can start typing this out. I hit enter, and that commits it. Dot top section matches this class of top section. It has to be spelled exactly the same with the same case settings, same hyphens, everything. The only difference is you put a dot in front of that. Okay, so let's click on top section. Let's go right back here to the CSS Designer where we were. We're going to set a background color property to this color. So pretty simple. Sample it. Click this and copy it. That's it. Done. So if we go to the background properties here for background, click background, and I can just paste what I just copied in and hit enter, and you'll see that my background color gets set for my top section right here. I flip back to, let me save. I flip back to Chrome, and you're going to see that now I have my dark red, maroon set, and that matches that color. All right. None of this is set up yet, but we need to do that. Our copy inside here is white, so let's change that. So here's the thing what you can do. Since CSS cascades, we don't have to set individual color settings for all of this text. All we need to do is set the color setting for this top section div. Really easy, really straightforward. So go back to top section. Go to the text setting here, and that's where color lives. And let's go to color and choose, again, white. It sets my hex value to white because I've just dragged it. And I hit enter and commit it, save it, and let's flip back to Chrome, and now all the copy's white inside of that. Fonts are crap. I don't see my hero. Because a div that doesn't have any properties set on it is going to be 0 height and 0 width. You will not see it. It's there, you just don't see it. So I'm using CSS's cascading effects to color all of this copy white, which is great. My default color here is black, and that's going to be set, but it's always good just to kind of force the default just in case. So I'm going to scroll down here. I'm going to zoom down into this copy. just to make sure, I'm going to select it, and I want to take a look at what the color of this copy is, and it is indeed 1A, 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 which means that's a dark gray. I'm going to copy that. It's not black. It may look black. So let's choose this copy. Let's see if the designer did it the same way. They did. Let's select this copy, just again to make sure. And that is also the 1A. Great. Okay, so pretty simple. Let's flip back to Dreamweaver. Let's put our color setting here for the body, which will affect all the copy on the page, and make it this 1A, 1A, 1A. So how do we do that? I can go back to body, and I can go back to the CSS Designer, and I can go to the text setting, and I can choose color, and I can hash paste. So make sure the hash code is in there for hex, and hit enter, and that adds it. I can hit save, go back to Chrome, and now all this copy is going to be set to that color. You may not see it here because the black and the dark gray is pretty close, but you'll see this didn't change. Why didn't that change? Because in terms of the inheritance of CSS, it is more specific. Body's being set to this color, top section's being set to this color. It is inside the body, it's more specific, so that overrides. Great. All right, so we're going to start moving through a little quicker. So we have our div top section. We have our H1. H1 is a tag, does not need a dot in front of it. It's not a class, it's a tag. Space, and I do my curly brace, and Dreamweaver finishes my end curly brace for me nice and neatly. So let's go and check out what those settings for that H1 are. Let's go back to Photoshop. Let's scroll up and go to here. And what are my settings? Baskerville, 48 on 20. So 48 points on 20 points. So we're going to deal with pixels, pixel settings here, not point settings. For the web, points are a little flaky when you deal with the web because it's not a perfect one-to-one relationship. So let's just stick with 48 pixels here. Baskerville, regular, 48 on 20. Let's flip over to Dreamweaver. We've got our H1 setting. I've added this to the CSS. What you'll notice here is that when I did that, the CSS Designer added that class to the list here. So that gives me an idea. Maybe before I set this up, maybe I'll just type in all of my classes that I need that I've already done, and then that will make it a little easier for me to make my selections. So let's actually do that first. So I put my insertion point right after the end here, hit return. I've got a div class of hero. I don't have to include the div in front of it, so I'm just going to go dot hero, space, curly brace, done. Go to the bottom here. What else do we have? We've got a P class of small. This I'm going to be a little bit more specific. So I'm going to do the P tag dot small. This locks that small class to the P tag. So if I have something else that's called small, none of these classes will affect it. It's only going to affect anything that's a paragraph with a class of small. Let's go next. What else do we got? We've got a class of circle. Let's do that. I don't need to set the div because that's kind of a default div. I don't need to do that. We've got bottom section. Bottom section. Curly braces. What's next? Rounded corner box. Now that's long. I don't want to retype that. I'm just going to copy it, and we're going to go dot, paste, space, curly brace. Done. That makes it easier. This one's rounded corner box too. Copying and pasting these also helps you in making sure that they are exactly the same. If there's a typo, it will not work. Rounded corner box. Great. Done. Float text. Let's copy that. Dot float text. Oh, see what I did there? I included the close quote. Dreamweaver immediately lets you know that that's a problem. You'll see with the color formatting because it's thinking I am going to be doing something after the quote. So let's get rid of that quote. All right. We have an image. We are going to need to be floating that image. If you remember from the Photoshop doc, this image is going to have to float to the right of this copy. So let's make sure we add in an image tag. However, we could have other images in here, right? We don't, but we could. So maybe we should make sure we give that a class. So let's call it image dot. We're just going to call it a float right class, right? So this can go the other way. I don't have this class on this image tag, but I can copy what I wrote here as my class, jump back into here. I like putting the alt tags last, source first, and then class, and then alt attributes. So I'll type class equals quote, paste, close quote, space. Now I've just linked this image to this CSS rule. What's next? I have HRs, and I have some more paragraph tags. So let's go back here to the Photoshop doc. I've got 2 HRs and they're different. This is a slightly different width. It's a different color. This is a longer width with a different color, and there's some different settings here. So I need to add classes to each one of these elements to make it function differently. And I need to add a class to this element too, because this looks different than this. Right? So all of these are different, so I need to make sure I add classes. So I can keep this easy. Let's go back. This HR, we're going to call this class equals rule 1. And let's go to this HR, and let's call this class equals rule 2. Whenever you do CSS rules, you cannot put a number in front. This couldn't be 1 rule or 2 rule. You have to put the number after the text. Just a rule, it doesn't work if you do a number in front. So let's add these HRs. I want to attach this to the HR because we have multiple versions of it. So HR rule 1, do my curly brace, and we'll do HR. I'm just going to paste and change that to. So now I have my HR rule 1, rule 2. Now I got to do some classes here. So let's change this to a class equals, we'll just call it para1. And I'm just going to copy that, paste that here, and paste that here. So I can call this para2, and I can call this para3. Just makes it easier. So I can create my paragraph rules here. P class, whoops, nope. No, this is CSS, not HTML. P class para1. Okay, so that's this guy right here. Let's copy that, and we're just going to paste it and paste it, put another line between it just to keep it clean. Change that to 2, change that to 3. So I've got para1, para3, and then I have this last paragraph that's here. I'm not going to call this para4 because there's something else going on here with this large box. So I'm just going to give this guy a class of gray box. Okay, copy that. P class paste. Done. Okay, I'm going to save and save on the HTML too because I made comments to these. I made attribute updates to all these classes. Let's flip back to Chrome. No change, right? Because I haven't done any other styling. But what I've done here is I've added in all of my classes that I need into my CSS. You'll see that they're all here now in the CSS Designer. And everything's now updated here. So as I start making changes to this, you're going to start seeing things change. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch this to, I'm going to change this view so we can see the CSS visual view, which is a little flaky, but it will work for the type of things that we want to start doing. So we'll go to we're in Dreamweaver. Let's go to View, Split. So I'm on Code. So I want Code and Design. So there you go. So there's our design view, and I've got my CSS view. So we'll start to see what happens when I start changing these elements. So let's go back to Photoshop. Scroll up. All right. Choose our hero item here, and let's see what this is made of. This is centered, Baskerville 48 on 20. So let's do that. H1, we're going to choose our type settings from the CSS Designer. Font family, make a selection here. Baskerville, first one, great, done. Font style is normal, we're not italic, we're not oblique. Font variant is nothing, normal, we can leave it. Font weight is, this is a standard weight, so we'll just make it 400. 400 is the standard, or we can choose normal, but let's choose 400 because I want it to be a regular setting. Font size, pixels, 48. Okay, Dreamweaver does a weird thing here. It kind of doubles the first number you pick, so this is 448. It's not what I want, clearly. So I'm just going to do that, and we can tab out. Line height is also pixels, and it was 20. So, and tab. The pixel setting got blocked. So you guys are seeing what's happening here. All of this copy is changing and getting updated. And then we need center, text align, center. So that's it. We're good to go. So what's going on here is that this is all, this is using shortcuts for the font settings. I'm going to change that because I want you guys to see everything blocked out. So I'm going to save this. Let's go to Preferences, and let's go to code format, code hints, code rewriting. Where are you? CSS styles. There we go. CSS styles. I'm choosing shorthand. I'm turning that off for font for a reason, because what I don't want, and apply it, and I'm going to close it, and this, because this is, the shorthand is all in one line, it's a little hard to read, so I'm actually going to delete that. By the way, I can delete all these rules, or I can come here and click my little trash can icon. I can do that, and you'll see them start to get removed. As soon as I did that, let's bring them all back. So click back on here. This is all set up for our shorthand. As soon as I remove one, it automatically reflows the CSS because of the preference I just set in Dreamweaver, and set everything here. So I have my font family. I like to move that to the top, so I'm just going to cut that out. I'm going to move up here, hit return, and paste. I just like having that up. I like having my font size second. Just makes it easier. Line height after that, and then you can do everything else. So what's next? Ooh, I clicked that little arrow, by the way. That arrow can collapse settings to kind of clean up visually. It doesn't do anything to the code. It just collapses it. So if you have a lot of stuff, you can close it. Helps you look through a long file. So what do we have here? We've got our font family here. Let's get back over here, CSS Designer. Go back to the text. Font family set. We're missing our text align, which is centered. Oh, there you go. That looks pretty good. Now, you'll notice that there's a space here. There's a space here. And there's spacing here. So that is called padding. So what we're going to do is just make a selection from the top, from the cap height of that text up top. And that's 62. Make a selection down here. That's 75. And on the side is 53 or 55. Okay, so top is 62. So that padding is going to be inside this top section object. So let's go over to top section right here, and let's add some settings. Top section, let's add some padding. Padding is under the layout section. Let's scroll down. Again, padding's on the inside. So we'll just say 62 on the top. On the right was 55. See, it did it. Duplicated that line again. That first number. Bottom was 75. 55. Let's change that back to 75. So what did that do? This is the shorthand, by the way. So we want shorthand for parting and margin because it just makes it easier. But you'll see what happened here. Everything opened up. Top, right, bottom, and then there's nothing here on the end of this for the left padding. But that's how the shorthand works. The first one handles top and bottom. The second one handles left and right. So if you don't put anything for the bottom, it's just going to use 62 pixels for top and bottom, and it'll use 55 pixels for left and right. I like adding it anyway, just so it makes it easier so I can look and I know that I've specified everything there. Let's jump back here to Photoshop. So now I'm looking at it here. This is centered. This is centered. Everything's centered. So I have centering set on the text for the H1, but I need to set everything to centered. So again, let's use the cascading abilities of CSS, and let's just take this text align center, and let's just move it. I'm dragging it up. Just put it under top section. Save that. And that centers all the text automatically. So, again, remember what I tell you, programmers are lazy, which is a good thing, because do the least amount of work to get done what you want to get done. In this case, align all the text at the same time. All right, let's jump back to Photoshop. Let's set some height and width on this guy. Easy way to do it here, though, would be to select the hero. And look, I've named it hero already, so I know what it is. I hit Command, and I get the little, and hover over the icon here. I get a marquee cursor hand. If I click, it will automatically select this, and then I can look at my my info palette, and that'll give me the height and width of that object, which is 1260 by 401. Let's call it 400. So 1260 by 401, let's make that width and height setting for the hero. All right, I can go here, I can go to layout, right? I'm on my hero. So this is pixels and 1260. And this one is height, pixels. Now if I click in there, I'm not going to get that problem that it duplicates the first number, and height is 400. And now you'll see what happens here. This guy just jumped up nice and big, right? So there's my hero. It also has a background of white, and it's got border on the left and border on the right, but nothing on the bottom and top. So let's get those settings in there too as well. Deselect that marquee. So we got white. Let's sample this color so I know what I'm dealing with here. Copy. Okay, great. Background of white. Let's go back to Dreamweaver. Click on our hero. Back on our hero. Background. White. Done. It's automatically changing. Let's go to the border settings right here, and let's choose border right, which is a color of that. Style is solid. I don't know how wide they were, so let's jump back and select that width. Zoom in. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pixels wide. Jump back to Dreamweaver. And width is pixels and 5. Done. So that's our border right with our settings and let's save. Let's flip back to Chrome, and we can see it here. There's our setting right there. Let's jump back here. So here's a quick way to do all those settings I just did in the CSS Designer for the left border. So programmers are also methodical. So this would make sense. If I copied border right and pasted it and just changed the word right to left, that should work, right? And it does, because when I go, you won't see it affect here because Dreamweaver again lies to you. But here it is. Left. Oh, it just updated. It just took a little while. Border left, border right. This guy's not centered though, like everything else is. Why is that? Well, text align center doesn't affect objects that are inside. It's only going to affect the text. It won't affect div elements. So there's a trick we can do to center an element. We're going to learn more about that in week 5, but I'm going to show you guys real quick here, and it's using margin to do that. So if I click here, back to the hero, I go back to my layout settings, and I go to margin right here. If I change margin to auto on the left and auto on the right, I'll show you what happened here. You can click on the PX and you can get a drop down and change that to auto. Now I have margin left and margin right auto. That will miraculously center something for me within that block. So, all right. So let's scroll down. I'm going to drag this over a little bit so we can see the whole thing. All right. So we have our circle div, which we haven't set yet. We have our other paragraphs, but I'm going to set this circle div first. So, what's going on here? Got our ellipse. Let's take a look at what this gradient overlay is doing. All right. It's going from 9A to 3.5, 3.5, 3.5. So I just got to remember 9A and 3.5. Since they're grays, it's just repeating. So 9A, 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 and 3.5, 3.5, 3.5. So let's cancel that. Cancel that, and let's just get that set up first. Let's check my height and width. 297. Go back to Dreamweaver. Here's our circle. Let's get that set up. So I'm not going to use a CSS Designer now. I'm just going to type it in. So width, colon, 297 pixels. Height, colon, 297 pixels. Let's see what that is. There it is, right there. All right. Oh, we do want it centered, right? Let's just copy this and paste it. Done. Sometimes you need to click back into the design view to make it work. Okay, so now we've got it centered. We've got it sized. It's not a circle yet. Let's go here. I know there was some spacing here above it. So let's add in some top margin there, 60. So then we're going to do margin top, 60 pixels. All right, so some of you that are astute are noticing that this is not in shorthand. That's okay. You can do it both ways if you want. You can do shorthand or you can flow it out like this. Either way. I'm going to save that. Click over here. You'll see that it pushes it down. So now we're going to use the CSS Designer to do our background and to make it round. So go back to circle. Let's make it round first. So that's under the layout settings. Sorry, it's under border. And that's border radius. So to make something a circle, we just need to make the border radius 50%. So we're going to click the link icon here to make it all the same. And I'm going to change this to 50%. And that's going to make it a circle. You're not going to see it here because it's still a box. I don't have anything inside yet. Let's go to the background. and we're going to create a background gradient right here. All right, first color was, let's change this to hex value in RGB, and that was 9A, 9A, 9A. Tab out, click our second color, and that was 353535. And that's our grade, 180 degrees, that's what we want. Hit enter, and then that color will get affected within that div. Not seeing it here, let's flip back to Google Chrome, and there it is. Again, Dreamweaver design view lies to you, don't trust it. But that's our circle. Let's go back here. There's some other things happening in the circle, like a drop shadow. Let's take a look at the drop shadow. What do we got? We got distance 0, spread 0, size 16, and we're using black at 60% opacity. 16 blur, 60% black color. Let's go do that in Dreamweaver. Let's go back here. We're back on the circle, and let's go to background, because that's where the shadow gets done. Box shadow right here. So horizontal, H shadow, V shadow, that's our distance. It's 0. So we want to make sure that stays at 0 pixels. 0 pixels, that's what we want. Our blur, 16 pixels. Tab out of that. Our spread is 0. Tab out of that. Color, black, but 60%. So we need a RGBA. Click RGBA, and we just drag this down to 60. Done. Hit that. We don't want an inset. It's actually an outset, so we're going to leave it the way it is. Click here, save it, flip back to Chrome, and we have our drop shadow. Now we're looking pretty good. Everything's kind of coming nicely here, so let's take a look. We've got copy block here. Let's choose that. What's our setting here? It's Arial, 32 on 40, and then we have some italic text here, regular text here. So Arial, 32 on 40. Let's flip back. This is our first paragraph here. So let's go up here. Where was it? It was under the H2. Oh, we didn't pop it in. Let's add it. We added our paragraph of small, we didn't add our H2, and we didn't add our paragraph. So let's just add it in. Where does it belong? Right under the hero. Let's go here. Let's add in our H2. And let's add in our base paragraph setting, which is going to be here. So our H2. Let's come here. You'll see here when I clicked into the CSS Designer, it updated. H2 type. Let's go grab our fonts. Arial. Okay, so this is our fonts, our font stacks. Arial is not set up as the first one. It's going to be down here, way down after Gill Sans Arial. I'm just going to click that, and I'm going to set one of my font settings. Let's check this again. 32 on 40. Let's flip back, and let's go to font size, pixels, 32, tab on pixels on 40. Tab. Okay. Don't need text align because it's already handled. So I don't need any of this other stuff. I don't want Gill Sans. I don't want all that. So all I'm going to do is delete it. I'm going to go right up to the first, and I'm going to hit delete. So now we're setting Arial on the H2, 32 pixel size. Line height is missing the setting. That's why all this stuff is happening. Make sure we say pixels. As soon as I change that, it's going to update. Okay. Way too thick, right? This is much thinner for this H2. So what do we got to do? Well, we got to grab our font weight. We want a regular font weight. So I'm just going to copy it. I'm going to paste it. You'll see immediately it drops to where we need it. Let's go grab this second paragraph. What is this? This is Arial bold. This is Arial regular. But it's all 22 on 28. So let's get that set up for that paragraph. Paragraph setting. I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to paste it in there. So it's Arial still. Font weight is 400. My font size was 22. My line height, oh, I forgot what that line height was. Let's check it. Line height was 28. So now I just changed it. So I didn't have to go setting this all over again. I can copy all these settings and just update a couple of the values. And now we're good. It seems a little too tight, but we'll deal with that in a second. So let's take a look here. We're going to flip back to HTML in a second because we have some italic, we have some bold, and then we have some bold italic. So easiest way to do that is with tags, because there are set tags called strong and M for emphasis that do exactly this. So this Maecenas Acumsen is italic. So let's flip back to Dreamweaver. Let's flip back to the source code, right, which is going to flip us here. Let's go to this copy, this stuff right here. Now there's a quick and easy way to do this. I select the copy in the code and I hit Command B for bold. That's going to wrap a strong tag around this copy that I selected. Done. Now you see it gets bold. Let's flip back. This entire first to the second comma is bold. So let's do that. All the way to the second comma. Command B. Wraps a strong tag. That's what we want. Let's go back. And dolor magna aliqua is bold. So let's go back and let's choose that. Let's bold it. Command B. And wrap a strong tag around it. But this is also italic. So let's make that italic. You can nest these tags. So I can select this copy and I can hit Command I for italic, which will add the emphasis tag. So now I have a strong tag with a nested emphasis tag and my copy. I close the emphasis tag, I close the strong tag, and now everything works nicely. Okay, this is our small text. So let's take a look at what small text is supposed to be. Very tiny, 14 on 28, and it has a drop shadow on it. So let's just set this font size first before we do anything. Save that. Let's flip back to source code, the CSS code, and this font size is, what was it again? 14 pixels. Changes it. So, see what I did. I have a base setting for the paragraph, which is a p tag. All that is getting inherited by this, because I'm still it's still a paragraph. It's getting all the settings from a paragraph, but I'm overriding something by using this small tag, and I'm telling it override the font size, but keep everything else. Don't change the font family. Don't change the font weight. Don't change the line height. Just change my font size. Okay. Done. Things are starting to look good. Let's flip back. Starting to look good. Let's flip back to Photoshop and let's take a look at what this text drop shadow is. Let's open up drop shadow here. And it is size of 8. And oh, it's 100% black. Set on multiply, but you don't have those types of settings within what we're doing here with CSS. So let's just make it a text shadow of 8, 100% black. Flip back to Dreamweaver. So what do we do that? You do not do that under the background setting. This is background shadow. You set text shadows under the text setting. We make sure we're on small. Let's scroll down to the text shadow setting. our shadow was 0, 0. I'm just clicking and tabbing, but my blur was 6 pixels. Tab, and I choose my color, which is black. I'm going to leave it as RGB with 100% opacity, so that it's 0, 0, 0, which is RGB for black, and 1 for the opacity setting, because I might want to change it. Just hit enter, and that will commit it. I don't see any change here, obviously, because Dreamweaver lies. Save. Let's just flip back to Chrome, and now you'll see I've got a background shadow. So we're looking pretty good here. Things are coming together, and we can move on to our bottom section, and we'll do that within the next video.